busy in 2021. I did so much art that year. It's honestly amazing. And I was writing at the same time too. Like I pretty much wrote the entirety of Calidus Chronicles Volume 1 that year. And I did all this drawing. That's impressive. So first piece, this is Philippa, who you have seen before in the big barbarian themed piece with her and Richard. This one is fine. This one was another story cover, and I think it was the fourth story cover, if I remember correctly. I think overall it's good. The skin is too yellow, which is something I noticed was a bit of an issue at the time. The hair is good, but it is pretty obvious I was trying not to draw the hands. And the face is fine, albeit she looks a little blank-eyed. But overall, I think this one came out quite well. This was the first time Runa got a cover, so of course I had to feature it here. And you might notice I reused her dress from that one piece I did in 2020, now with an added necklace. As I've gone back and updated the design for the story, and especially as I've gotten better about drawing more detailed and elaborate gowns, I don't think this is the design she actually wears to the ball. I will probably design her something new while I work on the second edition. But still, the hands look good, the face looks fine, everything looks good except for like the curls of her hair. I think those are a bit stiff and unnatural, but everything else looks good. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I did do quite a bit of concept art for some of the guests who would appear at the ball, mostly women, so I had an excuse to draw pretty dresses, and I figured I'd just put them here in like one slide because it was a lot. There were a few others, but these were the main ones I figured I would show here. So this one was another story cover, and this one so in the book there's the characters Corian and Bronwyn, and they don't play a huge role this early in the story. I'm mostly setting them up for later. But people really liked them in the one or two scenes where they showed up. So I was like, okay, I'll give them their own chapter. And as I was drawing this for the cover, I was like, okay, well, it doesn't look very fantasy. What do I do to make it clear that this is a fantasy world? And I'm like, well, I have very limited options, but what if I made it what if there's two moons? And ironically, that ended up being a huge world building element, and just, I hadn't even started developing the mythology at that point, but the two moons ended up being a huge part of it in the development. And overall, I'm still really happy with this. Like, the musculature of his back isn't quite right. I could do better now that I've actually studied what those muscles actually look like. But overall, I'm really happy with this one. And I definitely did a good job on the moons. I mentioned this one before, but you can see the original Catherine design I did in 2019, I think was when this one was done. That's when I nailed down Catherine's design, but this in 2021, I came back and updated it, and this is when you can see I was getting more towards like what she would actually wear in Calidus Chronicles. I've since drawn quite a few elaborate dresses for her, which you'll see later on. This is kind of this is what she wears in her first appearance. And this is this is dressed down for her. This is casual. I'm still really happy with the design. Like with the original drawing, I think the arm is the weakest part of it. But overall, I really like how this one came out. Unfortunately, you can't really see all the detail I put into the little brooch that she has on her bodice, but there's a little rose there that's etched into the gold, and I'm really happy with how that came out. And also, one of the only real changes I made to her body on this was adding a little indent to indicate stomach muscles, and I just like that little detail. It showed off more that she is extremely fit and she is athletic, but that's part of the story. This one was another story cover. I'm including it mostly because it's Hammond, but also just because, like, I think I did a really good job on the background. Like, you can see the river behind him, and the lighting on the railing of the balcony he's on. His face is a bit wonky and his hair is a bit of a mess. A couple years ago, I think I went back and updated the face. I think I could still do better now, actually. But overall, it came out really well. I have no idea how I got that texture on his skin. I have tried to replicate it since, even using the same brushes. I got no idea how I did that. And his hand holding the mug is really good too. And just the lighting overall, I think I did a really good job. This one's not as good, but this is Runa and Lagan, and I don't have many pieces of Runa and Lagan, so I'm of course going to include this, which was the first. It's fine. It's okay. Not great, but it's fine. Okay, so not everything in 2020 was fantasy. I was still playing around with pinups, and I had the idea of like, what if I do a series of season pinups? And winter, spring, summer, fall, each one a different girl, which kind of feels like it was the spiritual successor to the 2017 pinup calendar in a way. But I drew these so fast. I think I spent 3 days on it. I did all 4 sketches, I did all 4 line arts, and then I colored them all in the space of like 3 days. I'm still amazed. They're fine. They were good at the time. All 4 of these at some point I have either gone back and updated or at the very least thought about updating. Carolyn got an update. Madeline I started to do an update. Elaine I thought about doing, and Runa is such a mess I haven't even tried with that one. This one, J. Scott Campbell put out a challenge for people to essentially draw one of his Amazing Spider-Man covers in your style. And this was my take on it, because I saw the black cat pose and I immediately thought of Catherine. The shirt she's wearing, which has an illustration of a woman in a dominatrix outfit holding a riding crop, and then around it it says "Nobody fucks me harder than my anxiety." That was something I had found online, and it all just kind of came together in like, Catherine is perfect for this pose. I'll swap out the pearls for some shibari rope and then put her in that shirt. And it all came together perfectly, and it looks so good. And quite frankly, I think this is one of the best things I've ever drawn. I made this one to promote my Ko-fi page, except I realized that if I'm writing a fantasy romance story, which I was posting to my Ko-fi, it didn't really make sense to then use a pinup inspired piece to promote the page, so I didn't really end up doing anything with this, but I do think it came out well. This one was my first attempt at trying to draw one of the gods in Calidus Chronicles. It's fine. The face is not good, but I did put a lot of work into like the water behind her, and especially the transparent streamers from her dress. It's fine. I did eventually draw her again, and I am much happier with the current design that I have. This was another story cover. It's Throthgar and Carolyn, this time in the universe of the story. The hands aren't great, especially on her, but overall I like how this one came out. Albeit the background is a little too simple. I could definitely have put more detail there, but it's mixed. Her body looks good, her hand doesn't look good. His hand looks good, his body could use some work. I think it's fine overall. I'm not gonna give myself too hard a time with this one. Okay, so fall of 2021. I remember this specifically started in September. I had the idea for this Runa pinup, and I think I was specifically inspired by at least the vibe of Carlation's art. Carla Wizgala, I believe is her name. And so I first did the Runa one, and then I was like, I'll make a whole series out of it. So I did Matilda, Madeline, and Catherine. And Catherine was just like, I want to be Elvira. And so I referenced an Elvira piece for hers, except, it's Catherine. So she was like, I want to be topless with pasties. And I'm like, fine, you can be topless with pasties. And Matilda only agreed to show up if she got to have the evil queen's poisoned apple. I have very interesting characters. But I remember, like, for Matilda, to go with it, I referenced, for her expression, I remember specifically looking at Lana Perilla's sneer as the evil queen in Once Upon a Time. The Madeline piece is definitely the weakest one here. Runa and Catherine are the best, but I think Matilda is definitely solid. So I did my Halloween pieces in September, and then in November I started doing my Christmas pinups, which was specifically my characters Lagan and Runa. This is where I finally drew Runa in what's called the Rich Widow robe or something like that. I call it the Catherine Delish robe because they're made, the high quality ones are made and sold by burlesque dancer Catherine Delish. Oh, I want one of those robes so bad, but they're so expensive and I haven't been able to justify getting one. So I just drew Runa in it. I've drawn her in it a couple times at this point. But I drew Runa lounging around by the Christmas tree in the robe, and then Lagan in a sexy Santa coat with, showing off. And then there's a follow-up of Runa wearing the Santa coat. There also may be a piece that's not included in this highlight reel of something that happened in between that did not involve either the robe or the coat. Just saying. Okay, so this one was the final story art for volume 1, because I finished that. I finished writing the volume at the end of the year. This is Lagan and Runa again. The funny thing is that for the longest time, this was actually my desktop background on my computer, and it's still my login screen. My actual desktop background is Silas from Love and Deep Space. But this was my background for the longest time. And I have mixed feelings on it. Her dress is good. Her hair is good. He's okay. Like, the musculature of his legs is good. His torso's a bit too short, and everything else I'm kind of on. But I am still happy with it overall, I think. Definitely stuff I would change. But overall, especially at first glance, I think it's good. Last piece of the year, this is my most detailed snowy trees, to be sure. We got a lot of snow that year, and as I was walking up the hill to my apartment, I stopped and looked around, and I'm like, if it wasn't for the sidewalk and the cars, this would look like a fantasy setting. And so I took a picture and I redrew it, but instead of an apartment building in the background behind the trees, it's a castle, if you look closely. And that was the last piece of 2021.